today is do a bit of a reality check. You've heard a lot of comments from Michael just before me. You're going to make this 100-year decision, and you need all the help you can get. It's a tough one to make. I'm here to strongly support the remove option or the boulevard option. I want to focus my presentation on two areas. This question of the congestion and the myths associated with congestion and the lessons learned. Let's go through this. Where is it here? There we go. Okay, very quickly, this is the Gardiner at the top when it was built roughly 1960. This is what we're looking at today and debating with the hybrid version inserted into it. What has changed since 1960? A lot. It was a former industrial area. It was an area, obviously, that has been previously said the expressway could easily go through. Since then, we've had a massive, in fact, the largest transformation in North America of mixed-use development. Proposed up to 40,000 units, 11 million square feet of employment. This council, before you, 2003, adopted unanimously the Central Waterfront Making Waves Plan, which had one core primary principle: remove barriers and make connections. And that was a very important document that you have followed. I want to talk about congestion. Here's the 401. We all know it well. The reality is that it is now the busiest highway in North America, surpassing anything in Los Angeles. If this doesn't show anybody that widening highways doesn't solve anything, then I give up. This is 16 lanes wide at its widest point, and it is like that throughout most of the day. The clear message here is we cannot continue to rely on road capacity to meet our needs in the future. Here's the Don Valley Parkway at typical peak rush hour period and extending far beyond that. The reality here again is it's already at capacity. The difference is the GO trains, the transit options can be utilized in 15-minute service frequency to accommodate our increased demand that is happening in our city. Here's a great billboard. You're not stuck in traffic, you are traffic. And that's the reality. Most people think that it's the other guy, but the reality is it's about all of us. And we have to break out of this cycle if we have any hope of meeting the future growth projections in this city. Here's one of my favorite shots. How do you move 40 people? There's exactly the same number of people in each of those pictures. One per car, one per chair, and then they're all on one little streetcar in an empty street. And what that says is we have to utilize our roads differently. And the only sane way as our city continues to grow is to invest in transit. Just one comment on growth. You may know this. By 2041, our city will probably have 3.5 million people and 13.5 million in our region. Huge challenges. Here's another one. You need 72 lanes of expressway to equal the volume of people that go through the Gardiner, go through Union Station every day. We've been there. We've done this. Michael talked about this. In 2000, this was the Gardiner East debate. Some of you recall, went out to Leslie and out to Coxwell. Under the leadership of Mayor Lassman and the councillors at the time, they listened to the arguments and they decided to take it down. Everybody said the sky would fall. But in fact, the people who opposed it after talked to me and said, we were wrong. It works better. Here's University Avenue. This is really critical. University Avenue is one of our primary major boulevards, 8 lanes wide, median strip, wide public sidewalks, major institutions. Accommodates about 4,000 cars in the peak period, compared to the 5,200 on that portion of the Gardiner. I heard the mayor this morning on the radio talking about the probable unlikely nature of people ever sitting on a sidewalk in an 8-lane wide road having cafes and lattes, etc. I was there yesterday. They were doing exactly that. It is a very civilized approach, and it's a great, great model that we have in our very own city here. Here's my last slide that I want to end on. This is really, really important. It's come up already. We're talking about $500 million to $700 million here. What could we do with that money? Well, here's 3 simple suggestions in no particular order. We know the problem with Toronto community housing, the backlog of repairs. We could build a much needed waterfront LRT line for that money all along the waterfront, which is critical. Or we could, in fact, have a really good head start to Spark Track or many other things. So I leave you with that question. It is a tough one for you to wrestle with and for the council, but I do not feel it is physically responsible. And in fact, I would go this far to say that if the decision ultimately of the council is to support the hybrid, I think, frankly, it'll be a major step backwards, and you're going to miss a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And I'll be very frank, we'll be the laughingstock of the world because of what you have already seen with Michael. Thank you.
So, Paul, you know the city fairly well. Is there space to build more roads in downtown Toronto?
No, not in my opinion. Basically, the roads we have today are the roads we're going to have 50 years from now, 100 years from now. Because, you know, nobody in their right mind is going to advocate building new roads or expressways through neighborhoods. We all know that.
So given that there isn't space to build more roads in downtown, and we have 200,000 people living here and 750,000 people here every day, how do we deal with congestion?
In my opinion, the only way for a city our size that is growing into a 3.5 million size city is through transit investment. We need more of everything. We need the electrified GO. We need 15-minute service. We need Smart Track. We need the relief line. We need bus and streetcar ramp-up service. All of these things. We all know we're way behind in that investment. That's where we have to concentrate our money, and as many people here have said, we don't have enough of it to go around. And I think the biggest bang for the buck is through transit investment.
Now, the argument has been made that for 3% of commuters into downtown, 5,500 people, this will add in the immediate 3 to 5 minutes in commute times. In your opinion, as a former chief planner, what will the impact be on commute times in this city if we don't remove the Gardiner?
Well, I think, as I've tried to show in the slides, it's already at capacity. Building the hybrid won't do anything to deal with congestion. It just won't. It's a myth. The reality is you only get so many cars on the road space that's there, and you know, people eventually say, you know, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to shift to another mode, or I'm going to do something else. That's the experience that, as Michael said, has happened in all other major cities that have done this.
So I just want to push that further. So if the argument is that this will increase commute times for drivers in the immediate, for 5,500 drivers for 3 to 5 minutes, you're contesting that in the long term this will actually increase commute times for all drivers using the Gardiner.
Well, I think that's certainly a possibility. The reality is, you know, if we look at the 40,000 more units on the waterfront, 11 million square feet, the whole city and the region growing, the only way big cities in the world work when you get to that size is through aggressive, massive transit investment and having transit choices.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm over here, Paul. Your left.
Hiding back there.
To the extreme left. That's right. As far left as you can see. In terms of the issue of congestion, I wanted to ask you a question. Right now, the main streets in the center of the city of Toronto are tremendously congested. My own trip on Dundas I come from Dufferin to here to City Hall, takes twice as long as it did 15 years ago. If we funnel fewer cars into the central city, what does that do for transportation times inside the city?
Well, I think, as others have already said, I mean, start with the financial district. The only reason the financial district functions is because of the GO train and the subway. The vast majority of people take transit to get to it. Mm-hmm. Similarly, in terms of the question of the main streets throughout the city, they're either served by buses or streetcar lines, generally speaking. And the fact is, they're going to intensify for the mid-rise, you know, guidelines that you've adopted, which I think is a very good thing. The reality is that one image I had about the 40 people tells you everything. You know, you can accommodate a lot more people. Can't accommodate a lot more cars on the road space we have.
Right. So if we want to improve the travel times of the surface transit we have, does it make sense to funnel fewer automobiles into the center of the city?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be the trend in any case. The fact is that a lot of people now who want to live downtown, because they have choices, they do not have to drive, they do not have to depend on long commutes, and they walk to work, and they'll take transit or walk to work. And I think we're going to see that trend increased over time.
Okay, now for the sting in the tail. If we want to improve the travel times of 97% of the people who are traveling from the east side into the downtown, do we do better if we have the hybrid or the tear down? What makes those 97% of trips go faster?
No, I mean, as I've said, I'm a strong supporter of the remove option or the boulevard option, not only because it's the right thing to do here for transportation reasons, in my view, but also for the public realm, for the waterfront, for the future of our city. One of the problems that I find that people tend to naturally do is they focus on the situation today. Planning's about the future. We're supposed to be having vision here. We're supposed to be looking ahead up to 60 years out to 2075, when it's going to be a different place. And the only way it's going to work, in my view, is through this transit investment. And that's why I strongly support the remove option.
Okay. Thank you. During the budget debate last year, we deferred the question of whether to purchase about $400 million worth of additional streetcars. Which do you think would be better for the future of the city, spending that $400 million on extra streetcars or on extra expressway?
Well, I think the answer is obvious. I'm going to answer it one way, though. Many of you may know this. The number of people that are carried daily on Toronto on the TTC streetcar routes far exceeds what exists in the entire GTA GO system of all GO trains and all GO buses. Streetcars are absolutely critical for the future health and life of the city. So obviously I would invest in that.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, next up is Councillor Davis.
Thank you. I just wondered, Mr. Bedford, we haven't heard about these two options and evaluating them in the context of the official plan for the City of Toronto, which I think you're quite familiar with. So I wonder which of these options reinforces and is supported by the official plan of the City of Toronto?
Yeah, I think there's two parts to that. Of course, there's the citywide official plan, which is about intensification, basically, stable neighborhoods, develop in the right places, and strong investment in transit. So that's the first thing. And of course, there's the secondary plan of the Central Waterfront Making Waves plan, which Council unanimously adopted, I remind. And those core principles that were in that plan would in fact be realized by the remove option. They would, in my view, not be realized at all by the hybrid option, which is really maintain plus Cherry Street ramps.
So the so-called hybrid would be contrary to the direction of...
Well, in my view, I think certainly it would be a pretty tough test to assess the hybrid against those four core principles that the Council unanimously adopted in the Making Waves plan. I'm not aware of a document that's done that, but I think that would be a useful exercise.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next is Councillor Fletcher.
Thanks. Nice to see you today. In the cities that I read out, Mr. Kirkland, that had removed their expressways, have they done? Was there significant congestion resulting from that, in your knowledge?
Well, in my experience and what I've seen, walked, felt, touched, read in New York and San Francisco, I think what Michael said is absolutely the truth. The fact of the matter is they work better. And in fact, the figure that I came across in San Francisco was the traffic has actually been reduced by 25% after the expressway came down.
Hearing that, in some of the traffic studies, and we've been presented with a number of them, and some of them have been walked on, and there's new ones within the last week. Do you think that some of the traffic studies should not just be running these models, but also looking exactly at what happened to traffic patterns in those cities that removed their express?
Yeah, I think it's obviously a very useful exercise. It's the hard evidence that we have, both in those two cities and other cities around the world. And you know,